when we started this is almost 10 years ago now. This is before memberships were a thing. This is before online communities were a thing. I just had this idea. I knew what was needed, but there really wasn't a term for it at that point. So we started to build.
Welcome to the BuddyBoss podcast, where we dive deep into the strategies that will help you build, launch, and grow your online communities, courses, and memberships. I'm your host, Jason Broderick, Head of Content and Marketing Strategy here at BuddyBoss. If it's your first time here, you just haven't gotten around to it yet, do me a favor, click that subscribe button below this video, then click that bell icon to make sure you keep up to date with all the latest content here at BuddyBoss. In today's episode, I'm joined by Ashley Alderson from the Boutique Hub. The Boutique Hub helps independent retailers find the education, trusted community, and wholesale partners that they need to grow. In this episode, Ashley tells us about how the three different types of retail content, branded content, sales content, and engaging content, need to play together to fuel a winning retail marketing strategy. How she is starting to see a cleanse of new retailers that rode the wave of the pandemic when it all seemed easy, but can't sustain their business as spending habits return to normal. And how brand communities, affiliating for other retailers, and exploring beyond wholesale channels can help businesses build their customer asset, their brand recognition, and their real-world relationships. Let's dive in. Ashley, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. So tell me a little bit about the Boutique Hub. Tell me, who is it for? What does it do for them? How does it serve them?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, by the way. The Boutique Hub is the central connection point for independent retailers around the world. And how this really came to be was we initially built an online shopping mall of boutiques. I'm originally from the Midwest. I loved finding boutiques all over the country, all over the world. And I felt like, man, I just couldn't find these cool stores when I got back home. So I started to build this online shopping mall of boutiques. But when I started to bring all of these stores together, what I realized was more than a platform to reach consumers, they really needed a community. They needed a place to connect with one another, a place to find education and resources. You know, a lot of these independent retailers came from being stay-at-home moms or teachers or nurses, and maybe business wasn't necessarily their background. So they needed the one place they could go and turn. And when we started this is almost 10 years ago now. This is before memberships were a thing. This is before online communities were a thing. I just had this idea. I knew what was needed, but there really wasn't a term for it at that point. So we started to build. And the more we started to build and pull resources together in one central place, all of the retailers that we had met with, that had been attracted to the platform, they really started to communicate with one another and grow this platform by word of mouth because it was so central to what they needed. So 10 years later, it's still growing, it's still evolving, and we're still serving the independent retail industry.
I love that. I love that. So did you come from a retail background yourself? Like, did you have your own store or anything like that? Or was this just kind of something that like popped into your mind as something that you, as a consumer, you went looking for and enjoyed? But did you run a store?
This is such a great question. I get asked that question all the time, Jason. So my background actually by way of education was marketing and public relations. And I worked in economic development for 7 years. And so when I was in economic development, really like that small business and community mindset were really just something I became extremely passionate about. So when we first started to build the hub, I built it from the consumer standpoint. Like I just wanted to find cool stores to shop. And when I found them and I realized, man, they don't know how to run Facebook ads. They don't understand digital marketing. They don't understand how to track and count their inventory. So I felt like I could teach them everything I knew, but I'm a big believer of maybe what you don't know, you find someone smarter than you who can provide that resource and pool your resources together. So even though I did not own a boutique personally, I was able to pull enough people together that had that experience and really individualized educational experience that it really made sense for the retailers in the community.
That's awesome. So I love that because it's kind of like you'd never think that was the genesis of the project. When I went looking on your site just beforehand, I was sort of scrolling down the about page, whatever, and I saw you mentioned, we also have a sister site. And I looked at this sort of briefly. I was like, oh, that's cool. So now the hub has branched out into this like search database, but actually that's kind of the reverse. It was the sort of the search database first, and then you realized that the market that was underserved was actually not necessarily the consumer, but the actual business owner themselves. Is that sort of the right way around in my mind?
Yeah, I feel like it's every good business story has some sort of evolution, right? Where the first thing, the MVP that you build, isn't necessarily the thing that takes hold. And that was how it was for us. So we started on the consumer end with shopthebestboutiques.com, which is what that still exists as today. But then the Boutique Hub really became our core business model. And now we've branched off kind of on the other end onto the wholesale side of the industry, serving independent wholesale brands who sell into boutiques. So we have about 800 wholesale brands that we now serve on a platform called hubventory.com, which is an online wholesale marketplace as well.
I love that. I love that. So it's like bringing the three different I guess like customers of each other, kind of the three
Yeah.
different relationships together. That's awesome. So like I'm thinking in my mind of like independent apparel makers, or like if you were like a fitness enthusiast and you launched your own apparel brand, you might want to stock that into physical stores, or you might want to sell into a chain or whatever. And so that's the sort of a third market to sort of kind of connect to the hub, right?
Yeah, it takes the product all the way from manufacturing to the end consumer, and we serve each business owner who has their hand in it, so to speak, along the way.
I love that. I love that. So take me back, roll the tape back for me to like, I guess after the sort of consumer end of the spectrum, when you started discovering that like it was the business owner themselves that was struggling, or that had additional challenges, what would you say were some of the biggest day-to-day struggles that those independent business owners had when they were getting started, or when they were trying to grow their business?
Hmm. So a lot of those business owners, I feel like in retail specifically, there's really two sides of the retail brain. There's the retail art side of the brain, which is all of the buying and the social media and the customer service and all the pretty things that retailers love about their business, whether that's a brick and mortar store or an e-commerce store. But then there's the retail science side of the brain, and that's inventory management and open to buy plans and just really anything like financial and KPI related. And I find that a lot of retailers are obviously on the art side, not as much on the science side. So that was really the first challenge was, number one, how do we bring everyone together? And we can discuss day-to-day business operations, right? Like, who are you buying from? What supplier is great with this? What market are you attending? How are you reaching people on social media? But in order to really reach the next level of success for all these retailers, we had to really dig deep into their numbers and like the actual metrics that operated their business.
That blows my mind a little bit, because like it works the same in an online business as it does in a physical world. I guess the only difference is you don't tend to have like stock for a traditional like digital products business, but like in a physical products business, you have physical products, whether you're selling them online or in a physical store. So it's sort of like the only difference there really is, I guess, the logistics of keeping physical inventory in a physical store, I guess. But I suppose you even have that where you need to keep physical inventory on your online store anyway. But I'm just thinking like, did you see a propensity for more retailers who were like focused? They really love the art, like you said, and they kind of really didn't want to touch the science, or they were like, God, none of that stuff appeals to me. I just want to be like selling my things in my store or whatever. Like, or do you think there were some people who were very much into the data and the science end of the spectrum too, or what was the kind of split?
I would say it was definitely heavier in the retail art side of the brain. So I'm sure, Jason, we're both very expressive personalities, right? So if I go back to high school as an analogy, I could do English class all day long, but if I was in algebra 2, like I just desperately needed some tutoring or to like look at my neighbor's paper or something. Like it was so hard for me to get by algebra 2. And I think a lot of times in retail, it's that same. It's just an intimidation factor, right? But once we can take numbers and make numbers speak and tell a story to someone, and they can understand, okay, this number translates into me going to market and doing all these pretty things and how much money I get to spend there. Now it's a lot more fun, and it makes a lot more sense. So I would say the majority of the retailers that we've worked with really do struggle with that number side. And to your question, whether you're a brick and mortar store or you're an e-commerce store, you have inventory. So we would have these, huge e-commerce based businesses that have, a 20,000 square foot warehouse that they're stocking and operating. But in order to get there, it's not just the inventory. Now they also have to scale team in order to get there. So maybe they're hiring their first, second, third person, once you get past, I feel like 3 to 5 employees and you go up in threshold, it's a whole nother ball game in terms of managing people. And that's another challenge I would say that most of these businesses have, is you get into it again because of the retail art, but then you have people management on top of financial management. So the layers just get deeper as you continue to unfold. And it's always new levels, new devils, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've always said to myself, God, I never want to get into the products business. It just intimidates me so much. Like I've been selling non-tangible products for my entire existence, and so even the thought of like selling a journal, like a physical journal, to my like coaching membership, like just intimidates me so much. Having boxes of items physically located in a like, even in like a fulfilled by Amazon type situation where you don't run the warehouse yourself. So it's just that whole world, I think, is just intimidating to me as somebody who has operated in the online world only. So I can only imagine what it's like for a store owner. Do you think that at the outset of like store owners who are smaller, or e-commerce sites that are smaller, was there a set of challenges that they knew they had, and was there a separate set of challenges that they didn't even know they had, or maybe was there a set of challenges that you kind of had to convince people that they had, that they thought, no, like these things aren't my problem?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say they knew that they had the people challenges and they knew they had the financial challenges. But I think what surprises people, and this again is on the retail art side of the brain, is marketing seems easy to the layperson, right? Like you get into business, you think like, oh, like social media, digital marketing, I've got this. But really, there's a lot more to it than most people understand. And I feel like that's really more my background, is I just love like just all of the funnel strategy and just how to get people, through this customer journey. And it's much different than just, I threw up a post on Instagram and it went wild. Like it doesn't happen like that. Like maybe it went viral on TikTok, but that's actually pretty rare. So one of the challenges that I love solving for these store owners is really helping them build out a full marketing strategy. And I'm talking everything from SEO into their Facebook ads, into just how they're showing up and the content strategy that they're using across social every single day. Being a product-based business, as you know, is not just about selling a product, it's selling a relationship. So how do I think about it in like 3 buckets, right? Like content falls in 3 buckets for these store owners. There's branded content, which helps just tell the story of who they are behind the scenes, builds the brand, builds the relationship. There's sales content, which is selling the actual product. Again, physical, digital, doesn't matter. You're selling something. And then engaging content, which is just to stop the scroll. So how do I get people to answer my daily engagement question or click on this quote or this meme, whatever it is, just so I don't have to pay Facebook, to deliver an ad to someone to build engagement? I can organically get it. So if they can at least understand those 3 buckets, and then we can build in like email marketing and Facebook marketing from there, then they're on the right track.
Around what time, in terms of like year, so how long has this existed, firstly, is the first question, I guess.
So just about 10 years. We launched in
about
2013.
10 years, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So that the reason I was asking that was, my next question is going to be, so you will have seen a massive shift in your industry, like at the start of the pandemic, surely, right? Talk to me a little bit about how, because most of us in the sort of online only world either saw, I guess nobody saw no change, but most of us probably saw a positive change, or a sort of an uptick in what we were already doing, I guess, if we were online only. But it sounds to me like not only do you have people who have physical only or had physical only stores, but also you will have had a lot of people who had both at the same time beforehand, and now suddenly there's a whole new set of challenges. Talk to me a little bit about how the pandemic impacted the industry.
Yeah, there was definitely 2 sets of customers, right? So there was, like you said, the physical only, those who just had physical brick and mortar storefronts. During the pandemic, they had a choice. Either they were going to figure out how to get online, or they were going to be, mandatory shutdown in a lot of locations. So I feel like that was a really beautiful thing to watch unfold for them, is so many of them were eager. They came to the boutique hub to ask that question, what do I do now? And our team, our community, the e-commerce based stores who are already used to going live and social selling, kind of took these physical stores under their wing and said, here's how I do it. Let me show you. And we saw our entire industry just absolutely explode. E-commerce trends, in that period of time in 2020 and 2021 absolutely exploded. So while maybe the mainstream media was painting this picture of like retail apocalypse and retail doom and gloom, it was really just an evolution of retail. And it was really like the catalyst that pushed these physical stores kind of over the edge, who were thinking like, oh, I need to get online. I need to, but I don't really want to, or I really don't have time to. Now they had to. So that shifted everything and really, I think, made a lot more sustainable business for those who are brick and mortar. And then, I mean, it also in the online world, it brought people out of the woodworks saying, I'm going to start a boutique. I'm going to start selling these pieces online. And that was great. But now our market, I feel like, fast forward to 2023, and what I see happening going forward is there's a bit of a cleanse happening, where this looked like a great fun, the retail art side of the business, really easy entry. And it is, as is online coaching. But now when money's tight and when the consumer is changing their spending habits, it's maybe not as easy as it once looked like it was. So I think that shift is definitely, changing, and people have to have a lot more skin in the game, and they have to think, oh man, do I want to work this hard long term in order to build something really sustainable?
Yeah, I think so. The industry that I was in before, the reason I joined BuddyBoss was because I had one of the largest BuddyBoss sites in my industry, but that industry was another industry heavily impacted. It was performing arts, live theater really was the sort of industry I was in before. And so like theaters and live entertainment just stopped on the day, like the next day after the pandemic sort of dropped, 12th of March or whatever it was. And so I saw a lot of people in my industry. Well, their first question was like, okay, how can I earn money if my industry is shut down? So we saw a lot of people launching new businesses. And many of those people who already have had some kind of hobby, or like even leaning more into the sort of like craft hobby end of the spectrum, where they were like making something physical, were now looking like, oh, okay, can I sell this thing that I make online? Can I create a business where there never existed one before? And there were a few people who like, at the outset of the pandemic, we're already doing things like crocheting or whatever, and we're like, okay, now I've got a bit of an accelerator to sell this stuff online. But I saw a huge amount of people who saw the pandemic as an opportunity to go and begin something like that when they would have never thought about that before. So it was very interesting to see people who I would have known for years as like actors or whatever, who would have been in theater, and suddenly they were weaving, or they were doing macrame, or they were like, I now got a very good friend who does like biro calligraphy, and she'll like paint your wedding signs, and she's selling loads of them on like Etsy and whatever, and like I never knew she could do any of this kind of stuff. So it's just from my perspective as somebody who's been online for as long as the internet's existed in my life, certainly, it was amazing to see how the pandemic kind of caused a sort of an opening up of this whole other industry that never existed. And the other end of the spectrum then is, for years before the pandemic, I'd been looking at people who did have physical products. Particularly, I'm thinking of influencers who had product lines, but they're only selling sort of point was to sell to retailers. They were sort of selling their products in bulk to big retailers, like over here in the UK we've got like Primark, which is like Pennies or whatever. And now suddenly those big influencers, or not even big influencers, but they sort of saw an opportunity to go, I don't have to sell into this physical shop anymore. Like that physical store isn't even open today. So why am I selling wholesale to them when I could take control of my product line myself and sell direct to consumer? And so I also thought, I loved seeing that unfold too, where for years I'd been thinking, why? It's really not hard to sell direct to consumer. You're already creating your yoga mats and your bottles and your branded this and your that. You're already getting them in from wherever you're getting them from overseas. You're already stocking them somewhere, or maybe you're doing the sort of, a fulfilled by Amazon situation. Like the next logical step is sell it yourself. Be the person who gets to orchestrate that customer relationship yourself. And then not only will you be selling your product, but you'll also be creating this other asset too, which is like you'll be creating your own customer base. So yeah, I think like, did you see sort of similar in the wider sort of like already existing retail industry too?
Mm. Yeah, I really like, it depends on the business. So I would say I saw a lot of who were wholesale only, right? Like your friends who are selling
Mm-hmm.
them into boutiques. I did see a lot of them realize, okay, I've got to go omni with this. I've got to be able to sell wholesale and maintain that, because it's such a, once you're in that model, it's a great model because you're selling, one to many.
Mm-hmm.
And it's less overhead, and there's just a lot of benefits to that wholesale model. But the direct to consumer, like there's just so much brand recognition that comes with that. It's so powerful when they take, control of that D2C experience. And really, if they do it right, if they can balance those two things like in tandem with one another, they strengthen one another. But
Mm-hmm.
there's this delicate balance of pricing or exclusivity, or if I'm a boutique owner and I'm buying this pen, right, or a set of
Mm-hmm.
pens that are really fancy for whatever reason from this wholesale brand, if the wholesale brand is undercutting me and selling it direct to consumer, I don't want to stock them in my store anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I go D2C and still make this boutique over here who's buying my product feel special? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we've facilitated like a lot of those conversations as well.
Mm.
Not even just around the pandemic, but always, because it's another model, and
Yeah.
it's, they're going to be in tandem with one another going forward, and they can do really well together.
Mm. Yeah, one of the other things that it's just your pen example reminded me of another reason why like where BuddyBoss comes in and like the content and community end of the spectrum comes in is where with physical products is how do I sell a physical product as the like gateway into my brand, maybe
Yeah.
through wholesale, let's say, but how can I deliver that product as an accompaniment to a digital experience so that I can capture the customer even if I sold my product to retailer X. Through the delivery of that product, I can capture that customer anyway and sort of like start making like building my asset. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
selling 10 pens to pennies. But like in the box, maybe I'm thinking like the most basic version, like in the box, having a like, why don't you come join the pen community, the magical pen
Yeah.
community, like QR code. A customer goes into pennies, they buy this pen, and
Yeah.
now they're invited to join the world of, and I that's where I really love seeing the sort of the Venn diagram of like the physical product world meeting the digital product world, meeting the like community world. Is that is that end of the spectrum like things that you teach too, or that you like help people do that for themselves too?
Yeah, we do. We do. And I just think there's so much more to uncover. I think there's a lot of product based businesses, but also retailers and e commerce stores that haven't fully uncovered that yet. And I think that's something too, as we look forward to what's coming in the next year, is there's so many businesses out there who are just one dimensional. They only sell this one, in this one method. And if they can start to uncover, like you said, there's a whole online community I can unlock when I buy this product. Or I often think about this as well. I've built this massive audience selling whatever my product is, but I'm only selling this product. What if I also was an affiliate for all these other similar brands? Because really, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
selling a lifestyle brand at the end of the day. No matter what it is I'm
Mm-hmm.
selling, it's a lifestyle. So how can
Mm-hmm.
I, in community over competition, which is really the motto that our company's been built on, how do I pair up with these other similar businesses and we can grow together? And
Mm-hmm.
I credit a lot of that to the pandemic. I feel like that what happened in the pandemic was so many people became more focused on how can I support small businesses, but how can I collaborate? We just saw a
Mm-hmm.
lot more of that take place. And I think that's the way of the future. People don't want to do business with companies. They want to do business with people. So the more small businesses can really work together and promote one another, the more opportunity there is to go around.
Love that. I love that. Let's take a little handbrake turn and talk a little bit about like your actual site itself.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the sort of the genesis of the actual site. When you sort of realized this was what you wanted to do 10 years ago, I guess BuddyBoss might not have been the first thing you lived on, the first thing you explored. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about like
Um,
how you got started. I'm going to build this thing. Where did you start?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it really was an evolution of me starting with knowing nothing, right? Like I told you, there was no membership sites. There was no, like, this was not a thing 10 years ago. If it was, very few people knew about it. It's definitely not what it is today. So, with this idea that I had to build what is Shop the Best Boutiques now, I hired a random web developer and was like, hey, I have this crazy idea. You want to go for a ride? Like, let's do it. And he's like, okay. So we started with a plugin, Paid Membership Pro, just to capture subscription payments, and started to build out this like custom site off of WordPress, all these things. What didn't work with Shop the Best Boutiques was I didn't have enough boutiques to have enough consumers. I didn't have enough consumers to have enough boutiques. And I had this chicken and egg. And that's really when I realized, oh, these stores need business education more than they need these other items. So we pivoted and we started to build more in WordPress with LearnDash and with PMP. Fast forward several years later, really, to finding BuddyBoss, and really the BuddyBoss and LearnDash integrations just made things a lot easier for us in terms of our dashboard and how we deliver pieces. And now I feel like it's really a combination of what we've still built off of PMP and BuddyBoss together, and then just a lot of custom that we've built in along the way because we have these two sister sites and we want this whole customer journey to be integrated.
So tell me, when you sort of like started off with Paid Memberships Pro, and initially it was, so at the outset you were taking subscription payments for something. What were those payments for? Was it you were charging people to list their sites, and then you were sort of like, I assume traffic, the customer wasn't paying to be on your site, were they?
No, it was just a retailer. So initially the retailer was paying to be a part of the platform to list their site, which we were marketing across social. We had and we still have a pretty big Facebook group where consumers can come shop boutiques. There's like maybe 40,000 people or something like that in that group. And that was the initial, like, what the product was going to be. It was just marketing to consumers. And then when we made that realization, like, this isn't working how we want it to work, what it shifted to was you were paying this membership. It started at like $24 a month or something like that to access education. And then we had Facebook groups early on, like some of the very first Facebook groups for retailers. And so it was access to those groups and access to an inventory exchange where they could sell product to one another if they were overstocked or just couldn't move whatever they had left on site. And then that's grown. Now our membership model is more like it's $39 a month, or you can join annually as well and access all of that education, the Shop the Best Boutique site, the Hubventory wholesale site, and then a lot of our in-person experiences as well.
So you had a Facebook group alongside this initial product offering that you had, let's say. So you had like a membership that people were paying a subscription membership for, and for that they were given certain sort of like advertising visibility. And one of those sort of avenues of advertising, or maybe it was the main one, was into this Facebook group that sort of was a group for people who were interested in that type of retailer. Is that right?
So the initial Facebook group was consumers. So it was boutique owners being able to sell their products to consumers.
Yeah.
That group still exists. But now in our membership, we have about 14 different Facebook groups.
Oh,
so
wow.
They're niched down based on the size of their store. So our multi-million-dollar stores, certain other monthly thresholds, brick and mortar stores, online stores, children's stores, home and gift stores, those who are buying and selling wholesale, and then just kind of like one main group as well to like put everything together in one pot.
Got it. And in those groups, so this is the bit I find fascinating. In those groups, are those groups for you to sort of are they groups where those size store owners, let's just say they're broken down by size for now, where those size store owners are communing amongst each other, or is that where they are finding customers? That's the bit that I'm like,
they're communicating with one another.
Got it. Right. So originally there was a big group where it was consumers who were interested in this type of retailer, but now you have so many other groups that you have. The groups they themselves are sort of helping each other out, sharing stories of where they're at in their journeys, and you have them broken down by attributes that make them similar enough to each other to kind of like keep it succinct and interesting for each other, right?
Right.
Nice. Cool. And so there still is a component of you pay the subscription and you get to advertise your business to the big group, to the like consumer group. Is that still happening?
There still is a part of that, but that's really like low on the totem pole in terms of what we
Yeah.
offer. Like it's one small perk, but I would say the biggest benefit that our community would say that they get from being a part of the Boutique Hub, really three things. First is community, sense of community with one another, right? Daily,
Hmm.
what's working for you based on your business type and size. Second is education. And we do live weekly coaching and just every type of downloadable resource we can think of in terms of education. And then wholesale, access to vetted quality wholesale
Wholesale.
manufacturers and their ability
Yeah.
to buy from them.
Got it. Yeah, that also makes sense because, of course, that then means that's where the sort of the groups that are similar to each other have the most value to share from each
Mhm.
other is in that wholesale relationship. Like, I'm interested in your product, can I buy it in? Kind of a thing, as opposed to I'm an individual who's interested in your product, can I buy one of?
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So tell me then, how do you feel that finding BuddyBoss took that hub to the next level, or like from where you were at, what do you think? What do you think? Like, how do you think that BuddyBoss helped you to kind of move quicker or grow faster or create a better experience?
Yeah. One of the things that so many of our members were frustrated with was it was great that we started in Facebook and people loved that. It was easy, but everyone wanted a way out of Facebook as well. They wanted to be able to connect with others off of the platform. And so BuddyBoss really helped us with that in terms of having the groups on BuddyBoss, the individual profiles on BuddyBoss, the forums on BuddyBoss, and also just the different opportunities to lay out our dashboard and to have access to an app, all of that, which we didn't have before. So just that organization was made a lot cleaner uh, outside of Facebook groups where you're really like live or die by an algorithm. We didn't want that. We wanted to be in control of everything ourselves.
Nice, nice. And you mentioned something a lot earlier as well, which is sort of this kind of, it opened the doors to you being able to do some custom stuff too, where obviously that would have been literally impossible in Facebook, but hopefully it was easier to achieve using BuddyBoss. I've got a question for you. The answer might simply be no, but if the answer is yes, then it sounds to me like it might have been something you did custom, which is, do you have businesses registered as businesses on your inside your BuddyBoss, or do you have like individual representatives of the business as people profiles?
Ours is set up as people profiles. So
Got
the
it.
boutique owner themselves as an individual has the profile on
Mhm.
BuddyBoss.
Got it. So there's no sort of there's no necessarily no direct relationship between the individual profile of the member of BuddyBoss and the like store listing.
No, because so we don't really have store listings on the site
Right.
because it's really like individual to individual.
Got it.
The store itself is a member of the boutique hub, but it's the individual that's communicating with others.
Yeah, got it. Got it. I got it. Yeah, because in my mind I was thinking, oh, that'd be interesting if she had store X was a member of the site. Uh, currently BuddyBoss doesn't have the functionality to have like parent-child relationships between store and like store owner, store manager, store employee,
Right.
or marketing manager, store manager, and so I was thinking maybe that might have been something you looked into achieving, or you might have even done a custom. Some other people have used, like, for example, on my site I have WP Job Manager because it's a jobs listing site I have, and so one of the things we have is like our employers and then employees of that company. They have their individual BuddyBoss profiles, and if you're communicating with somebody on the site, you're communicating with the employee, with the
Mm.
actual the like the person who's running the listing or whatever. But there is also a business entity which sort of they all live under, and they have a relationship under, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. I have a friend who has a job site set up very
Hmm.
similar to that in a very niche industry. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, mine's tiny. Mine is like castings and auditions for musical theatre in the UK, so it doesn't really get much more. The only other I know another site which is like hamster training, how to teach your hamster to like run around mazes and stuff. That's another niche site I've seen. But yeah, other than that, I think mine's pretty dinky. Cool. So what do you think? What do you think has been the biggest highlight or the biggest benefit to you personally of building the boutique hub?
Oh man. I I feel like since the very beginning, since 10 years ago, actually even before that, I'll go all the way back to the very, very beginning. You know, when you're young and your parents ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, you're gonna be an actor, right? I always said, I'm going to do something no one's ever done before, and I'm going to change people's lives. That was the only two things since I was a little kid that I could think of. And I feel like that's what what we've been able to accomplish with our team at the Boutique Hub is I know that when you change a small business owner, when you change their business, you change their life, you change their family's life, you change the life of the people they employ. And small businesses are the backbone of every community around the world. And that is our mission at the Boutique Hub is when we can change that business, it changes everything.
I love that. That's prompted me to ask you one other question, which I forgot to ask you earlier, which was, what's the sort of split? You mentioned that the Boutique Hub is, worldwide. What's the sort of split of countries? Do you have, I imagine, predominantly US, but is there a large UK contingent or Australia, or like give me the sort of like geography?
Yeah, so all 50 states in the US primarily. I think we're in 7 other countries outside of the US. So a lot of Canada, Mexico, Australia, UK. I would say primarily.
Nice. Yeah. And where, I guess I was going to say, like, the next thing is, do you have sort of, because you do a lot of teaching and training on the site too, do you have like local, national experts, I guess, like people who are UK based to be like, hey, well, there's this thing in the US, but that doesn't quite exist this way over here in the UK. It's kind of like, here's how it is for us over here kind of thing.
Yeah, we try to, back to those Facebook groups and how we niche people together and even the individual profiles on the site. How can we connect people in those geographies? So we try to like pull them together. And then when we're offering a training that's maybe slightly different, then it's easy to get with that group of members and say, here's how you take what we taught here, but apply it to what makes the most sense for you there.
Yeah, I like it. So to flip that original question on its head a little bit, what do you think has been the biggest benefit to your members of building your site on BuddyBoss?
Oh, I think that building the site on BuddyBoss has just made it so much easier for our members to find what they're looking for and to find the people that they're looking for. I think that makes a huge difference. Business is so lonely. I'm sure we've all experienced that and can all cry in our soup a little bit, but it's so lonely. And when they can find one another and someone most like them without a lot of headache and hassle, that makes their life so much easier.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, for sure. So what's the next big thing that you're going to be building with the Boutique Hub? What's the next big project, next big event? Sort of give me the little, like, what's next?
Well, our wholesale platform is a huge undertaking for us. So to really further build out that side of what we offer at the Hub is a big piece. And then also our in-person events have always been a big piece of the Hub, but we look for those to only grow in the future as well. We put on a big event every year called the Boutique Summit, where we bring about 500 to 1,000 store owners together in person for a live 2-day conference. And that is just not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger from here.
I love it. Have you done Boutique Summit Europe, Boutique Summit UK?
Not yet, but I mean, I'm always up for the challenge.
Nice. When you do Boutique Summit UK, you let me know. I'll be there.
Sounds good.
Cool. Let's do some lightning round questions then.
Right.
Just before we close out, we'll see how we do. So what's the one book that you think all entrepreneurs and business owners should read?
The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, that's hence that question was actually prompted sort of in that vein. Like, if you can only do one thing, what's the one right thing? I like it.
Right.
What's your favorite business motivational or inspirational quote?
Oh my goodness. Thomas Edison. Opportunity is often missed because it's dressed in overalls and disguised as work.
I love it. Oh, I've not heard that one. Oh yeah, great. Yeah. I need to have like simplify tattooed on my on the inside of my eyeball somewhere, the inside of my eyelid.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Oh God, I heard a great one this morning, which is on the in a very similar vein to that. Was it? I think it was it Einstein? Maybe it's a misquote. And anybody can make something complicated. It takes a genius to make something simple.
Oh, that speaks
sort
to
of
my New Year's
reminded me
resolutions.
a lot of
Absolutely.
your yeah, for sure. Reminded me a lot of your quote that you just gave me then. Yeah, that's another one. I'll get that yours tattooed on my right eyelid and his tattooed on my left eyelid, so that whenever I wink I'll have a different reminder. What's the one place that you go to learn about building your business?
Oh, I would say I'm a podcast junkie. I'm a podcast and Audible junkie. So
Mm.
there's always that. But I feel like masterminds, like groups of
Hmm.
people, it's not always about joining a mastermind with the perfect coach, but it's about knowing who's going to be in the room with you as well. I find that I
Mm.
get just as much out of those relationships as I do like
Hmm.
whoever is hosting the event.
Hmm.
Um, but also just time off, because it's really easy to pack your schedule full of so much that you have no time to actually be creative and think. And I think a lot of the ideas and the next steps and the inspiration that we need, they're already inside of us, but we just
Mm.
don't ever slow down enough to actually listen to them. So
Hmm.
that's step number one.
Yeah, I was like, time off, time off. No, I don't know what that. I don't know. Is that a different language? Is that like something? No, never heard of it. Never heard of it. Um, what's the one thing that you wish that you knew before you started your business?
Oh my goodness. I wish I would have really understood what MVP means.
Hmm.
I felt like when I started, I had to have everything built out and have this whole roadmap, and I had to know what was going to happen before it was going to happen. I had to be able to see the end of the staircase before I took the first step. And I was wrong. You really don't. It's just like your analogy with setting the table. That was not useful to me at all. I needed to just know the next step, and then the
Mm.
next and the next. And I didn't just instinctively trust that I could figure that out. I thought for sure there was someone smarter than me that knew more than I did that would have all the answers. Not the case. I just knew the
Mm.
next step I needed to take, and I should have taken it earlier.
Mm, yeah, yeah. For me, I think it's the taking it earlier is the crux of that for me. Like,
Yeah.
I struggle with like if it's not perfect, then it doesn't deserve to be seen yet. In my mind, I have to
Yeah.
be like, no, like like striving for excellence is good, but it doesn't. Striving for perfection is a problem.
Mm.
And like, yeah, I know it's like the classic thing of like if you weren't a little bit embarrassed by the first version of your thing, you didn't launch it quick enough.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things to remind myself of is like when you launch this new thing, unless it's you're doing it off the back of something which is already massive. But if this is a brand new entity or a really young business, just remember that if you're lucky, some people will find you at the start, and some people will start to get to know you. But like, there's nobody there yet to be embarrassed about the thing. Like, launch the thing, learn what you need to deliver, and then you can begin creating the incredible, excellent, all bells and whistles experience piece by piece as you go. And especially when the people who are the first in are, if you nurture them relationally, then they're going to be your biggest advocates. They're going to want to see you succeed. They're going to want to help you. They're going to want to provide their feedback and help you improve the process. And you don't need to have this front of excellence before
Mm.
you welcome your first customer in the door, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm. If you had to start your business all over again,
Mm.
you had all the skills and knowledge that you have today, but you've only got $500 and you have to start your whole business all over again. What's the first thing that you would do?
Mm. I would just build the community.
Yeah.
I would just build the community. Like if I was going to relaunch a membership, I would just bring the people together and I would just serve them. I wouldn't worry about all the other fancy stuff, all the detail. I would just bring the people together and answer their questions, make them feel seen, heard, and important. And it
Mm.
doesn't cost much of anything to do that.
So flip that question on its head then for you. If I gave you $1 million today and said, go grow your business, what's the very next thing that you would do?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I would invest in people. I would always invest in people. I think the struggle with like once you've built a community and you've scaled it, so we have about 8,000 active monthly members. Once you've gotten to this point, the hard part is people feel like they're one of many and they don't feel seen anymore.
Hmm.
So I would leverage a team to have more direct communication with those members
Hmm.
to make them feel seen, to increase retention, but then also to open the door to other products that we have that maybe they didn't, they weren't aware of or they didn't understand how it
Mm.
benefited them. But I would have an internal and external like sales and customer service team more than we have
Mm.
now.
Yeah, I like it. I was thinking, was that the sort of train of thought you were thinking, like sales development type
Yeah.
internal sort of, hey, let me guide you. Where are you in your process? Well, the next best step for you is this, and we have this to help you do that.
Yes.
But yeah, helping sort of people or hiring people to be the sort of the Sherpas, the guides to helping people move up the ladder of their businesses, for sure. Nice. Last one for you, which is a quick one, but it could be the longest one, which is, how do you define success?
I've struggled with this question for a long time because so many people have so many opinions. Success isn't just a number, because I feel like you can achieve a number and still not feel like you've really succeeded or feel good about it at the end of the day. And so to me, success is the ability to sit down and take a deep breath and just feel good about where you're at. It's being where your feet are and feeling good in that moment. That's all it is.
I love it. Ashley, that was awesome. Thank you so much for giving me your time and for being very patient with the internet. Tell everybody, where can people go to find out more about you and the Boutique Hub? Give us your sort of socials and your wherever people can go to discover more.
Absolutely. The Boutique Hub's at theboutiquehub.com, or me personally, I'm at AJ Alderson on Instagram.
Nice, great, cool. We'll stick all that in the show notes. And it was really great to chat with you and talk about a world that I know absolutely nothing about. Is one of my favorite things to do, is to sort of explore. So yeah, I love nothing more than to sit down with somebody who's like clearly a long-standing expert in a world that just blows my mind. So thank you very much for giving me your time, and for everyone else in the community too. That was Ashley Alderson talking to us about creating community over competition, how the Boutique Hub helps independent retailers survive in a post-pandemic world. If you run an online course, a community, or a membership site powered by BuddyBoss, and you'd like to feature in an upcoming podcast episode, head over to buddyboss.com/podcast and fill out the form to get in touch. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to let us know, then make sure to hit that like button below and then leave us a quick comment to tell us what was the most valuable thing that you learned from this video. That's it from me. Until next time.